Smith.
Thank you. Minister, just before I begin, also to send the best wishes of the Labour Party to Deputy Jennifer Whitmore. Minister, last night's RT Investigates exposed some shocking practices in the Irish horse racing industry, focusing on how horses, most of them racing thoroughbreds, are treated in the final period of their lives. After a life in the public spotlight, many of them, and being worked, they are then entering what appears to be a very murky chain. It's nearly 150 years since Anna Sewell wrote Black Beauty about the appalling treatment of horses in Victorian England. Yet here we are again, with serious questions to be asked about what happens when a horse is retired, with traceability issues for up to 20,000 animals a year. There was a famous ad once in Ireland asking who's taking the horse to France. What this scandal shows us is that we still don't know, and we don't know who is watching them. This is a sector that receives gigantic levels of funding from the Exchequer through a ring-fenced statutory fund. But we now have a clear sense of the murky and alleged and illegal practices that are going on. Our eyes should have been opened when the horse meat scandal exploded in 2013. Now we have evidence of alleged illegal activity at the one processing plant in Kildare. Microchips being inserted into horses to create false identities. The system, Minister, is clearly broken and being abused, and all under the nose of the Department of Agriculture. The safety of the human food chain is not being taken seriously. The only conclusion to be drawn from using false microchips and spray paint to change the hair colour is that these animals wouldn't pass otherwise. Human health is being put at risk and horses are being abused. We recognise that the Horse and Greyhound Fund supports thousands of jobs in the sector, many of which are critical to the rural economy. But we must demand the highest standards, standards that are nowhere near being met. What has emerged is a major reputational blow again for Ireland and calls into question the ongoing approach of the government to protect the status quo. Over the last 2 years, the Labour Party has tabled amendments to the Horse and Greyhound regulation. What we've asked for is a full independent review to see how best to support these sectors, those involved in it and rural communities it supports, but also, critically, how the highest standards of animal welfare are implemented and complied with. What emerged last night raises serious questions for the Department of Agriculture and for Horse Racing Ireland, who appear to be asleep at the wheel. If RTE hadn't carried out their investigation, would anything have been exposed or changed, and what would be happening in that abattoir today? We've also called for a review to look at how the rights of workers in the sectors can be improved and the need for a sectoral employment order to set minimum rates of pay and condition. Low rates of pay and insecure work leave people vulnerable to unscrupulous practices and pressure to turn a blind eye to what's going on. So, Minister, what will be done to once and for all stamp out illegal practices that have been uncovered again in the horse sector? Will animals be allowed to continue to enter Shannonside foods until we are certain these practices are not ongoing? Are there animals going in there today, Minister? Do you believe that the Department of Agriculture and Horse Racing Ireland are fit for purpose? And do you concede now that there must be a review into the Horse and Greyhound Fund, including animal welfare practices?
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Smith. And I can assure you that any illegal practices will be dealt with using the full force of the law. And I agree with you that the highest standards must apply throughout the whole equine industry. And I know you haven't done this, and I think it would be wrong for anyone to seek to portray that what we witnessed last night on RTE Primetime Investigates is representative of the wider equine industry, because I don't believe it is. I genuinely do not believe it is. And yes, the government does support the equine industry because it is a very important part of the Irish economy, and it's a very important part of our society as well. It contributes almost €2.5 billion in economic output every year and supports almost 30,000 jobs across the Irish economy. And these jobs, as we know, are particularly important in the regions and around rural Ireland. Almost €16 million of the funding the state gives to HRI is ring-fenced for welfare and indeed for integrity. So animal welfare and integrity is specifically funded, and the government does insist on the highest standards throughout the system. Clearly, what we witnessed last night is evidence that that is not the case everywhere, and that will be dealt with. There is a full-time veterinary presence in the slaughter plant on the days on which slaughter takes place, and ante-mortem, post-mortem and identity checks are carried out in accordance with the legal obligations. And I am assured that the Department takes any issues of non-compliance with welfare or traceability rules extremely seriously. And that is why, as soon as this matter was brought to their attention through the contact RT had with the Department in recent weeks, a formal investigation was initiated and is now underway, and we have to allow that to take its course. And we are satisfied that sufficient statutory powers are there, and indeed very strong statutory penalties for any proven breach of the rules in this regard. And the Department takes this with the utmost seriousness.
Deputy Smith.
Minister, can you give a categoric guarantee that this is not happening today? That there's vet now in Shannonside every day, not just when the slaughter is happening. And animal welfare, like we're putting €95 million of taxpayers' money into the Horse and Greyhound Fund, €76 million going into Horse Racing Ireland. Animal welfare is not just about animal welfare on the gallops or in the paddocks or the stables or the horse racing course. It's from cradle to the end, and that is being failed here. So we don't know if there are other animal rights abuses, and we can't have confidence that this is the only place that it's falling down at all. So this is a massive issue. The amount of money, the amount of taxpayers' money that's going into this, for anyone who watched that show last night, Primetime Investigates, would have had their stomach turned by the practices that they witnessed. So we need a categoric guarantee, Minister, that this is not happening today, and that we can't wait for an investigation to conclude. This practice has to stop now. And we've called for the betting levy to be increased to provide funding for other sports and for a fairer allocation of taxpayers' money in this area. And what's happening today is only adds further power to those calls. We need higher standards across our equine industry.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Deputy. Just to be clear, the funding that is provided by the state is primarily for horse racing, for thoroughbred racing, a very important part of our economy and a really important part of the fabric of regional and rural Ireland. And I do not for a moment believe that what we witnessed in RT Primetime Investigates is representative of the wider equine industry. And I think it is important that we all put that on the record, because there will be a lot of people in the industry today who are very hurt and who are angry that the reputation of the wider industry gets called into question because of the practices of a very, very small number of people. The holding area in question is under investigation. That is being actively managed at this moment in time, and on any day that there is activity in the abattoir, a Department of Agriculture vet is present on site, and that work continues in parallel with this investigation, which is being afforded the level of priority by the Department that you would expect.